All right, this is the last section of chapter 10. Okay, chapter 10, section 7. Circles on a coordinate plane. Please pay attention because you guys are not going to be given the formulas for this. So this is something else that you have to memorize. Circle at the origin. When the circle is at the origin and they're asking you to write an equation of the circle, all you're doing is finding the radius and plugging it in. So what is my equation? If they gave me a circle at the center of the origin, where my center is at the origin, all I have to do is look for my radius. What is my radius? Plug it in and solve for my radius. This is what the equation should look like. If it does not look like this equation, it's unfortunately going to be marked wrong. Okay, so this is what your equation should look like when your circle's center is at the origin. So let me go ahead and give you an example. So looking at the example, my example is going to say, if my radius is 3 and my center is at 0, 0, what's the equation of the circle? Okay, it's going to say something like that, or it's just going to give you centers at 0, 0, radius is 3. I'm going to take x squared plus y squared equals my radius. What's my radius? 3, and I'm going to square it. Keep in mind I could evaluate 3 squared, so it's going to be x squared plus y squared equals 3 squared is going to give me 9, and that would be my equation of my circle. All right, so looking at this example, it says write the equation of the circle shown. So we need to find two things before I could write my equation. Where is the center of my circle? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write center, 0, 0. What's my radius?
5.
Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's 5 all the way around. So yes, my radius is going to be 5. So when I have, again, my centers at the origin, it's just going to be x squared plus y squared equals 5 squared. Evaluating my 5 squared, I'm going to eventually get x squared plus y squared equals 5 times 5 is 25, and that would be my equation. All right, looking at example number 2, it says write the equation of a circle with the given center and radius. So they're giving me the information and I have to use it and plug it in. Again, they want me to write an equation. So looking at the first one, my center is 0, 0, and my radius is 4. So I'm setting it up as x squared plus y squared equals 4 squared. Evaluating my 4 squared, I'm going to get x squared plus y squared equals, what's 4 squared? Good, and that would be my answer for this one. All right, looking at the next one, same thing. Center's at 0, 0, so it's x squared plus y squared equals the square root of 5 squared. When I'm square rooting something and squaring it, what happens? Good, they cancel each other out. So I'm eventually going to have x squared plus y squared is going to equal 5 as a whole. And that would be my answer for this one. And looking at the last one, center again is at 0, 0. So I'm going to have x squared plus y squared equals 4 times the square root of 3 with everything being squared. What do I have to do to solve for that radius? I'm going to go ahead and distribute my 2. I'm still going to have x squared plus y squared equals, what's 4 squared? 16 times, what's the square root of 3 squared? 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve that. I'm going to have x squared plus y squared equals, what's 16 times 3? 48. And this is going to be my answer. Questions on these? Super easy. Again, please remember this is only when the center is at 0, 0. All right, now looking at it when the center is not at 0, 0. So when the center is any point on my coordinate except the origin. So when you're looking at this, if your center is something else, something other than 0, 0, it's giving you values for x and y. You're letting your h represent your x value and your k represent your y value. Keep in mind this is for the center only. Okay, so this is looking at my center. So this is for the center, and it's plugging in to your standard equation. Okay, it's plugging into your standard equation. However, looking at the one up top, this one right here, I'm going to highlight it in blue. When are you using this one? You are using this one when your point, when your radius is not given. Okay, they're going to say something like, okay, here's my center, and here's a point on the circle. So let me explain what that means. This is only going to be used when you're given a point on the circle. Okay, so for example, looking at this diagram, you're given your center. Okay, that's going to be given to you, or you have to find the center. Here's my center. Here's a point, we'll say right here. Here's a point on my circle. Are they giving me my radius? No, they're giving me 2 points. So if you look at this formula, it looks similar to the distance formula because you're finding the distance from your center to the point on the circle. So you have to solve for your radius. You're solving for your radius. So you're taking your point on the circle, which is my x and my y, and you're taking the center of the circle to solve for the radius, okay? Your answer should be written in standard form, which is right here. This is my standard form evaluating my radius. Okay, any questions on that? We are going to do an example on the notes so you guys will see it when we are using it. Yes?
So both of the equations will give the same thing?
No. The one in yellow, this one right here is how your answer should be written in standard form. I mean, yes, if you're looking at it, you're solving for the radius. You're really just square rooting it. But this is how your standard form should be written. X minus this the x value of the center of the circle squared plus y minus the y value squared equals your radius squared. This one you're solving for your radius.
I know, I'm just asking if you were to do the math for either of them, would they give the same number for the radius?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, looking at the next slide, we're going to go ahead and it says write in standard equation. Write the standard equation of the circle with the given center and radius. So again, the standard equation is not going to be given to you, so it's in your best interest to write it as many times so you remember it. So standard equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals your radius squared. Please pay attention to your signs when you're solving these because a lot of people get the signs mixed up. So looking at the first one, my center is at 1, 2. Okay, highlighting kind of where it's going to go. My center, this was again h. This then was my k value. Let me get the highlighter. And then my radius is what's getting plugged in. So looking at what I have, I'm going to go ahead and write it out. I'm going to have x minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 4 squared. So again, just highlighting what I plugged in. I have my 1, I have my 2, and I have my 4. Evaluating it, because we can, I could get rid of that 4 squared, I could solve it. My answer is going to be x minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 16, and that's my answer. That's my standard equation. All right, questions on that one? All right, solving the next one, looking at B, same thing. I'm going to have my h, my k, and my radius. I'm just plugging it in. I'm going to have x minus negative 3 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals the square root of 5 squared. Pay attention to my signs here. Again, just highlighting, I wrote it exactly how it was, using the rule exactly how it was given to me. So, writing out my answer, I'm going to have x plus 3, because I have a subtraction and a negative, squared plus y minus 5 squared equals the square root of 5 squared is just going to be 5 as my answer. And this is how it should be written in standard form. Questions on that one? Again, super important that you guys pay attention to your signs, your positive and negative signs. Looking at the last one, doing the same thing. Here is my h, here is my k, here is my radius, plugging it in. X minus 0 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared equals 4 times the square root of 3, and everything is being squared. Do I need to write x minus 0? No, I don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and write x squared plus y plus 2 squared equals, evaluating this, I'm going to get 16 times 3. 16 times 3 is 48. We kind of solved that in the last slide. So this should be my answer. In the end, please, again, pay attention to your signs. Super important, because a lot of students get that incorrect. Questions on these 3? Yes.
So this is the equation when you do have the radius and when you don't have
Yes,
the radius?
you have to solve for your radius. So we're going to get there in the last slide, and you'll see how we have to solve for the radius. All right, looking at example number 4, it says write an equation for the circle shown. So now they're not writing out my center, they're not giving me my radius, but looking at the diagram, I could find that information. Again, they want me to write an equation. So looking at it, what is the center of my circle here? Good. My center is 4, 1. And what's my radius? What is it? It's 1. Please pay attention to the graphs. Sometimes the graphs, not only on your homework, but on the test, are not going by ones. So definitely pay attention to the graph. Okay, so it wants me to, again, write an equation. So we have to remember our standard equation and plug in. I'm going to have x minus 4 squared plus y minus 1 squared. And what's 1 squared? 1. And that would be my answer for this one. Questions on this one? Again, this is when they're giving you a diagram. All right, looking at B. What's the center of my circle? Good, negative 5, 3. And what's my radius? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just double checking. Yes, it's 3. So again, writing it out, what do I have? I'm going to have x minus negative 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 3 squared. Solving everything. Please do not leave your answer like this. You have to solve it. I'm going to eventually get x plus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 9, and that's my answer. Again, signs are definitely important for this. If you get a positive and it's supposed to be a negative, it's going to be incorrect. Questions on these two? All right, looking at this, they want me to graph the equation. Graphing my equation, so I'm going to have A, and I'm going to have B. Looking at my first one, this one's going to be for A. Looking at A, who could tell me what is the center of my circle? Pay attention to the signs. What is it? Good. 3, -1. And what's my radius? 2. So graphing it, this is going by ones. So putting my center at 3, -1, which is right here. And then how are we graphing it? My radius is 2. So I'm going to go over 2 to the right, 2 to the top, 2 to the left, and 2 to the bottom. And then I'm just going to connect those dots, curving it. This is kind of what your circle should look like if you had to graph it correctly. And then looking at B, who could tell me what's my center for B? Okay, -2, what? Not 1, 0. -2, 0. And then my radius is, good, 2. So again, looking at my B, my center's at -2, 0. And then my radius is still at 2. So 2 to the top, 2 to the bottom, 2 to the right, and 2 to the left. And then connecting my dots. Should look something like that. Any questions on graphing the equation? All right, in the last slide, this is a question where they're not giving you the radius. This is find the equation of this circle with the following information. It says the center is at -1, 3, and the point on the circle is -5, 6. So just drawing out what that means. If they're giving you your circle with your center, they're just saying the point is -5, 6. Let's say my point is right here. I technically don't have my radius. I need to solve for my radius. So this is when that rule comes into play where you're square rooting it. So if you forgot, it was x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Everything square rooted is going to equal your radius. So plugging in what I have. Keep in mind we should know what our h and our k stand for. That's for my center. Then those points are for my x and my y. So just highlighting it. Again, just make sure you're plugging it into the right area. Okay, that was for my h and k. And then this is for my x and my y. So looking at it, plugging in what we have. My x is going to be -5, so I'm going to have -5 minus my h is -1. Keep in mind it's squared plus my y is going to be 6 minus my k is 3 squared, and that's everything square rooted. Solving it, I'm going to get -5 plus 1 squared. I'm bringing this down still. You could have just changed the signs. And now solving it, what's -5 plus 1? -4. Keep in mind the -4 is being squared. Plus, what's 6 minus 3? 3 squared. Don't forget that square root. A lot of people normally forget the square root. And then what's -4 squared? Positive 16 plus 9. And what's 16 plus 9? And what's the square root of 25? So my r equals 5. So what do I have? Writing it kind of how it's normally given to us. It's going to say my center My center is at -1, 3. My radius is at 5. Write an equation. So how would I write this equation? I'm going to have x minus -1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 5 squared, and evaluating. I'm eventually going to get x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 25, and that's my equation. Given my center and that point on my circle. Okay, questions on this one?
So for the final equation, you wouldn't use the value of x and y?
No. Yeah, you